So we are at a very, maybe the most critical point of the year. Day before Erev Yom Kippur begins tonight. What else can I say? So it's a time where throughout history, the Jewish people have been asked to come together to have an important conversation. What they call the Shabbos Shuvah Drasha is always in this time. In some communities in Europe, it was the only 2 times a year a rabbi ever spoke. Was when he was contractually obligated to speak was prior to Yom Kippur and prior to Pesach. Why? Prior to Pesach because he needed to arouse people to review and remember Hilchos Pesach, how to make Pesach. His responsibility is, because what's the violation for when you don't make Pesach properly? If you violate Isser of Chametz, what's the penalty for that? It's very severe. What is it? Kara is the soul to be cut off from the Jewish people. The rabbi, more than anything else, he's responsible for the welfare of his congregation, of his people. So you've got to make sure that they don't err in such a way that Chas v'Shalom, their souls are damaged. Similarly on Erev Yom Kippur, the rabbi knows that it's his responsibility to make sure that his congregation is going to do the tshuva that will remove from them whatever onshim, whatever punishments that might be in store for them, Chas v'Shalom, that can be mediated by tshuva. So his goal is to get them to do the mitzvah of tshuva. Okay? And just like before Pesach, the Shabbos Hagadol Drasha is to help you do the mitzvah, mitzvahs related to the Seder and Pesach. So too, Shabbos Shuvah Drasha is to help you do the mitzvah of tshuva. Okay, now, the mitzvah of tshuva is a vast subject. Okay, we're going to take one little aspect of it, but I also want to put it in the context of everything that's going on in our world. Everything. Because Yom Kippur is a day of what? It's a day of judgment, Chatima. The world was judged on Rosh Hashanah, but the Chatimas Hadin, the final deliberation is Yom Kippur. And what we say the Nisan Tokef prayer twice, both on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And what does it say in that prayer? It says, Umi Yaru, who will rise, right? And Chas v'Shalom Miyanua. Miya Shiur, who will prosper, Chas v'Shalom Kubol. Mi ba'esh, mi ba'mayim, who will be punished through fire. So much fire this year, so much drownings, Chas v'Shalom, water. We want to avoid all these punishments. That's the rabbi's obligation, to protect, to help people receive the mantle of tshuva, the mantle of protection that tshuva provides. At the same time, we have to listen to what Hashem is presenting to us. We have to have what we call a leiv basar, a heart, a real heart, an open heart. We're going to define that term today. As opposed to, what's the opposite of a leiv basar, a human heart? When you say someone is this, what? Has a heart of stone, a leiv even. Okay, so this term, leiv even, is an important term in the laws of tshuva. Okay? And if it's basar, if it's flesh, what do we do when a newborn child comes into the world to their basar, if they're a male anyway? We give them a bris milah. So that's one of the psukim that we say that represents Elul. It says, it brings down in our other places, the Saskar, Umal Hashem, Hashem will circumcise, Es Levavcha, Ve'es Levav. Notice the first letter. Es, Aleph, Levavcha, Lamed, Ve'es Vav, Levav, Zarecha. So, the circumcised heart. What does it mean to have a circumcised heart? What does that mean, even? I mean, it's an unusual term. So, the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva says that it has to do with forgiving and forgiveness. Okay, when somebody comes to you and somebody's done things to you, and the Rambam says even if they did really bad things to you, if the Rambam says he did really bad things to you, then it must have been really bad things. Really bad things. And they come and ask you for mechila. What's the rule? It's halacha because tshuva is part of the process in tshuva. What do you have to do? You have to go ask mechila. What if they don't want to give you mechila? They don't want to forgive you.
Ask again.
You have to ask again. What happens if they don't want to forgive you then?
Yeah.
You have to ask a third time, and you bring a company of people that know him and that know you. happens if he doesn't forgive you then? And you're no longer obligated to ask. What happens if the person you wronged passed away in the meantime? What do you have to do? Go to the grave, assemble a minyan. Now, this is not a joke. I heard somebody advertising mechila minions. This is not a joke.
Wow.
He says, anybody who, needs a mechila minion, can you imagine? I don't want to say which neighborhood that was in. But yeah, there are those that, that's their job, to make a mechila minion. So, Mal Hashem Levavcha really means a heart that is forgiving, even for extreme threats. People did really, really bad and nasty things to you. Somehow, your heart has to still not turn to stone when they come to you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go inside to a very interesting and famous portion of Tanakh. And so really the title of this shiur is not only the difference between Leiv Even and Leiv Basar. By the way, Rabbi Nachman said, my Hasidim will always be called Breslov Hasidim. Even though where is he buried? He's buried in Uman. That's where we went to Thal Rosh Hashanah for everybody. So because he says Breslov means Lev Basar. Because that's what my work is with my Hasidim. I want them to have a penitential heart, for lack of a better word. Now, what does it mean, this Leiv Even? So, in order to understand this, let's go to one of the great episodes in Tanakh. And so, this is the alternate name for the shiur is Abigael, right? The prophetess of the 10 days of June, or Abigail, the king's wife. Both of them are legitimate titles. Who knows about the episode that I'm referring to? Who was Abigail? She was actually the second wife of King David. Who was his first wife that was promised to him? His first wife was Michal bat Shaul, who was promised to him because he killed Goliath, but also because Shaul said a contest. Whoever brings me 100 dead Plishtim, which thing? He bris milah of a Plishti. Because the Plishtim are the model of Orlei Leiv, of the unforgiving, okay, the unforgiving. So you make a bris milah on 100 dead Plishtim, and you will pay, that will be my daughter's hand. Okay, an usual sort of dowry, but what happened to Michal? What happened to Michal? Does anybody know what happened to Michal? She was taken, first of all, she criticized them. Right. But even before that, did Shaul actually give her to David? No. Instead, he gave her to another man known as Palti ben Laish. Now, the Gemara says that Palti ben Laish had a worse temptation even than Yosef HaTzadik. Why? Because Yosef HaTzadik, it was obvious that if he was with Potipharah, he would be doing something wrong. He would be sinning against his master, right? And it would be an offense, maybe commonplace in Egypt, but not, according to the standards of Klal Yisrael. So clearly and blatantly, obviously, an Aveira. When the king gives you a wife, his daughter, and says, and he's the posei kador, and says, no, legally, halachically, she doesn't belong to David, she belongs to you, and everybody's clapping and applauding the marriage. And what did Palti do? He never consummated the marriage. Because he said, she's not really my wife. She was promised to David Melech. In fact, he made kiddushin on her. By bringing the brisei milah of these Plishtim, by winning that battle and killing 100 Plishtim single-handedly, that was his payment for her. That was his kesef kiddushin. Where is this actually? And therefore, I can't go against the king because I'll be a morei be-malchus. I'll be deserving of death. But I can't be with her either because she's not really mine. And it says when finally she was given to David, he walked after her crying. And some people say, why? Because he loved her so much and he never, could consummate the marriage. He says, no, because she turned him into a spiritual giant. He says, now I'm just a regular guy, but up until now, I was greater than Yosef HaTzadik. because every night I rose to that challenge and I was like Yosef and Tzaddik. So Michal was the first one. This is in Perek Shmuel Aleph, Perek Chaf. We're going to learn this story. Rav Soloveitchik uses this beautifully in his Ala Tshuva in a section called "An Abigael Follows Every Sinner." If you want to go take a look at it, it's a beautifully written chapter, and it inspired me to delve into it. Okay, and here's the story. So, first of all, a couple of things. Who chose David HaMelech to be Melech? Who chose him? Who anointed him? Who chose him to be king? Shmuel HaNavi. Who chose Shaul to be king? Shmuel HaNavi. Wait a second, so what happened? What caused Shmuel, with Hashem's command, to take another king instead of Shaul? What did Shaul do? He didn't listen to which command? He didn't listen to a couple of things.
Well, the one that
The main one, the one that sealed his fate, was not to destroy all of them. Like, what did he leave alive? He only left animals alive, right? And also Agag, who by being alive that one night caused, Haman to be in the world, because he escaped death that one night, and he had a child through that one night, and that became Haman. So it was pretty serious. So what happens is, if you recall the story, that Shaul grabs on to Shmuel's coat, and what happens? A piece tears away. The corner of his garment, the place where the tzitzis would go, is torn away. And he says, just like Hashem, this garment was torn, so too your malchut will be torn away from you. So the big question is, who is the legitimate king? Okay? Mi HaMelech. Mi HaMelech. So this story, the text and the context, we're going to see the text about Abigail, but the context is, the story before this is how Shaul is chasing David, and he goes into a cave, right? And he's relieving himself in the cave, so he must have taken off his garment. And what does David do? He tiptoes close to Shaul. He cuts off the corner of his garment. How ironic. The same signal that Shmuel gave him, David actually performs. Not intentionally, but that's just like what he did, like the Ruach HaKodesh or whatever. Then David feels very bad, and his people he's men. He had 600 men running around with him. At that point, I don't know how many he had exactly, but a little bit later, he had 600 men. And he said, kill him, he's right here. He says, no. The question is, Mi HaMelech, who is the king? So what's the answer to that question? Is David the king? No. Even if he was chosen to be the next king, right now, who is the Melech? Shaul. Can you raise your hand against the Melech? What becomes of you if you raise your hand against the Melech? And if you don't have compassion, what type of lave do you have? Do you have a lave basar, or do you have a lave even? Even. So David decides, I need to remain abreast of the chassid. He says, I will not raise my hand against the king. Shaul goes out of the cave, gets dressed, goes out of the cave. David comes out after him and says, you see, I'm not your enemy. And Shaul calls him and says, is this my son? He's moved. Remember, Shaul literally suffered heavy mental illness. I would call it more than a clinical depression. It was a sort of madness, a real madness. It was some sort of insanity that he went through, psychotic. And he could only soothe himself by listening to what? To the music of David HaMelech, which shows you how good music really is. But he said, is this my son David? He snapped back to himself, and he says, now I know that you will be the king. How does he know? Because look what happened. The corner was torn off. Now what's on the corner? Always on the corner of the garment? The tzitzis. What does the tzitzis remind us of? Akash Baruch Hu. And what about Akash Baruch Hu? That he commanded us, as a king commands his subjects, to perform his will, the 613 mitzvos and the various knots of the tzitzis are ramazim, are hints to the 613. So the tzitzis is the key. Who is the melech? What color is the tzitzis? Blue and white. What is the blue about? Shamayim. What's in Shamayim? The Kisei HaKavod, the king's throne. And that really is the theme of Rosh Hashanah too. Mi HaMelech. What do we say? One of the interesting things about Uman is that when they get to the word HaMelech and Shacharis, you know what they do? Very unusual thing. Nowhere else in the world. They clap. They give a standing ovation. I never saw it until I got there. It was here, 3,000 or 4,000 people clapping at one time. It's impressive. You know, they're like cheering. And Hamelech, that's it. I mean, I'm all in. I'm enthusiastic. If you're quiet, then one guy will be thinking, yeah, maybe he thinks he's the Melech, but I'm not agreeing. Right? There's no proof that he's the Melech. Who says that he deserves to be the Melech? And when you're all clapping, it's quite visible that you approve.
Do they make vocal sounds while they're clapping?
No. No.
Was David anointed, or he was just told that he was going to be the Melech?
Anointed.
He was anointed. So there's two anointees then at the time, because
That's
Shaul
right.
was also.
Correct.
So what makes him think that there couldn't be two Melechs at the same time?
That's exactly the fuzzy gray area that defined his moral challenge. And we're going to see it gets even more challenging in this next episode. So, and by the way, the episode after this, so what happens is David in the cave cuts off the piece. That's number one. Then Shmuel dies. Okay? And in the same parak where Shmuel dies and is buried, the next thing that happens is this story of Abigael, Naval, and David. And afterwards, there's another incident where David is being trapped by Shaul, and again, could have killed Shaul, but doesn't. So I would like to say, text and context, it's all one story. It's all one story. Will David HaMelech raise his hand against another? Because that was what happened here. So let's go inside. The story was like this. Immediately after the death, again, Parak Buffet, they gave Hespedim for Shmuel Hanavi Vayikru Bebeso Beramah Vayakam David Vayered El Midbar Paran. David flees because he knows he's a fugitive, and if people are going to find him, everybody's gathered around. Lots of people, spies, could detect his whereabouts and transfer it over to Shaul. So now it goes into this next story. Same parak, little break. V'haya v'ish b'ma'on u'maseo b'karmel. There was a man who lived in Yehuda, but his business was in Carmel. Do you know where Carmel is? North, near Haifa. So you can imagine, he was so wealthy that he lived in the area of Yehuda, actually in the area of Hebron. And he had his big business. What was his business? He had 3,000 sown, 1,000 goats, and once you had that many sheep and that many goats, what other business were you in willy-nilly? You were in the wool business, and you were in the cheese business, and you were in the meat business. So it was a lot of business.
And mezuzahs?
And mezuzahs and cloth and Sifrei Torah. Yeah. Well, maybe mezuzahs anyway. So he had all this sheep. And by the way, they do say the word sown covers a lot of different animals. Okay. And he had a wife. But first of all, his name was Naval. What does the name Naval mean?
Disgusting.
Disgusting, something disgusting. What do you call a dead animal? A nevela. But his wife was great. V'shem ishto Abigael. Va'isha tova sechel v'yafas toar. She's described in two ways. And she is the heroine of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Chazal say that this whole story took place in the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Okay? Whole story. She was very sharp. She had seichel, and she was also very beautiful. V'ha'ish kosher, but in contrast, the husband was kosher, was unreasonable. Someone with seichel knows how to deal with difficult people. You don't have any seichel, so you say stupid things, and you do stupid things, and you turn people off. Viram me'alodim. He was just bad to the bone. Bad to the bone. Evil. How could that be a shidduch? You know, who made that shidduch? Who made that shidduch? I'd like to know. Well, we have to understand a little bit more about him. She was a woman who was befitting, she was one woman who was at an extremely high level. She was one of the 7 Nevios, by the way. She's one of the official 7. What is her prophecy? She prophesizes that her husband's going to die.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
Maybe that's a
dream that a lot of women have. It says, Vihu kal bo. It's written kal bo, like everything is in him, but the real reading is kalibi. Kalibi, which means, according to Schwartz, he was from the royal house of Kalev ben Yefuna, whose Yerusha was where? Hebron. Where was the seat of David's first monarchy? Hebron. Okay? So he is a royal, blue blood. It also means, according to some Mefarshim, that he acted like a Kelev. And the thing about a Kelev is that, what's interesting about a Kelev is it doesn't have any seichel. Dogs have intelligence, but they don't have seichel. Cats have seichel. They're clever. They got, a dog, if you leave, I don't know, how many dog owners here?
Yeah.
Did you ever leave your dog overnight or a couple of days alone? No. What would you do if you put out food for a dog, enough for a week, and you went out and came back a week later? Would that dog be starving or fine? Why? It will eat all 7 days worth of food immediately. Because it doesn't have seichel. It's like, okay, I'll eat a little bit now, a cat will nibble, and you come back, and when you go out, the cat's going to be fine. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a cat person, but traumatized. You're a cat person?
We have 2 cats.
So if you left a cat with 7 days of food, would they be okay?
Fine.
Fine, right?
The only problem is leaving an entrance open because we get the neighborhood cats. They know there's good food in the house.
Oh, they make a party. They have real seichel. They call up their friends to say,
The owners are gone.
yeah, let's go.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
When you were describing Abigail, did you say Yofat Torah?
Yes, Yifat Toah.
So what is that connection?
How is that connected? She was beautiful, but she was beautiful and intelligent.
It's got nothing to do with when we hear about a Yofat Torah in the Minga Atmo.
Actually, you're hitting a very interesting point, and I will say that it's very connected, and I'll tell you why. Because there's about to be a war, and what happens to a Yifat Torah in the war? She's taken. And what happens in the end to Abigail? She's taken by David. Okay? Not violently. And not in the lifetime of her husband. But in essence, it almost happened. She was the only one who prevented the war from happening, as we'll see. She used her seichel to prevent her husband from getting murdered by David. Not murdered, killed by David. We'll see why. So I think that's a very, very sharp insight. Yes, she wasn't Yifat Torah in a sense. She was like a captive wife. Okay, so this is the situation. So now we understand the shidduch. She was worthy to be married to a king. We're going to see a tremendous proof about that from a Mishnah and Sanhedrin that's going to absolutely blow your mind after this. Okay, hold on. She was queen material, right? Seichel, beauty, inspirational, Neviah. What else do you need? She is the perfect queen. Okay. What's your Rosh Hashanah day where we declare Hashem is king, right? So she's actually the heroine of Rosh Hashanah because she is the Eshet HaMelech. She represents the woman who really is suited for Malchut more than others. So why is she married to this jerk? Because what is he aspiring to be? The king. He is royal. He's in Hebron. He's multi-millionaire. And what does David not have that he has? Well, David doesn't have money at this point. He's begging for a handout. He's a refugee. But there's something even worse. What stain did David have on his reputation? Not Bathsheba, because Bathsheba didn't happen yet. Early stain on the reputation of David, which would have disqualified him from Melech. And that's basically the whole story of his enemies that influenced Shaul to hate him, was that David was illegitimate. In what way? Why was he unworthy of Malchut? Because who was his ancestor? Rus HaMoaviyah, who was an Isser Kal. It was only Boaz who was Mechadesh, the Chiddush, that she's kosher. But some of the Frumies, like Ploni Almoni in the story of Rus, said, very nice, but I'm not going to eat it. It's kosher, but it's not my level of kosher. So if you're a blue blood and you want to be king, and there's no more, King Shaul's on the decline, and everybody knows that the Melech is really supposed to come from which Shevet, and everybody knows that the king comes from Yehuda. And what's the capital of Yehuda? Hebron. And if you want to be the king of all of Israel, Hebron, you better have a lot of influence over all of the tribes. Did he have influence by other tribes? Yes, because where was his business? All the way up in the Carmel, which means he was a nationally known Gvir. Except Chazal say that he used to pull the following shtick. He was one of the wealthiest men around. So they came to him in Carmel and said, could you please give us money for the poor people? He says, I gave out all my money in Hebron. And then they would come to him in Ma'on, which was Hebron, and they would say to him, would you please help us? He said, I gave all my money away in the Carmel. So he had this, he was a bitter miser, but he had designs to be king. Now, what was going on was that David had 600 men. Was David a king? Was David a king? Yes or no? Kind of. Nascent king, a king on a developing king, an embryonic king.
Well, if Shmuel was still alive, why didn't he just...
Shmuel had just died.
You said he just died, but David was already anointed, so he knew the problem. He had two anointees, so why didn't he make it clear who would be the king until a certain point, or just say, listen, you're not the king anymore, even though you were anointed? Like, why couldn't he make it clear?
So listen carefully, because I'll say two interesting things. They say that Shmuel dies, and Shaul only dies 7 months later. 7 months later. So there's this gray period. Why? Why did Shaul only die 7 months later? Why did, essentially, once Shaul dies, right? Essentially, there's no need for Shaul because we already picked a replacement, and so let's move on. It's almost like out of respect for Shaul, out of respect for Shmuel, they didn't want to mingle the death of Shmuel and the death of Shaul, so as not to embarrass either of them, and to give kavod to Malchus. By the way, 7 months. What of the Spheros is 7? Malchus. It would have tinged the monarchy. Makes the monarchy look cheap and replaceable, right? And not enduring. So it endured a bit longer. Also, we'll see Naval's death, the pretend king, was 10 days after Rosh Hashanah. What day is that? But only the last 3 days was he really sick. Because Rosh Hashanah is the day that Shmuel died. And, it's like the death of a period of Malchut, a change of Malchut. The king dies, Yehi HaMelech. Melech died, Yehi HaMelech, to be a new Melech. But they didn't want to mix the Shiva period of Shmuel with the Shiva period of Naval. That's what Chazal tell us. As if to say again, respect. He's distanced from Malchut. He has nothing to do with Malchut. Okay? But he wanted to be. Now what David does here is that he had his men, and after all, what is a king's job? What's the main job of a king? Does anybody know what the main job of a king is in Judaism? When you appoint a king, what is the king supposed to do? Protect. What? To lead the nation in what?
Unity.
But for what purpose? Milchama. He fights the wars. Right? What is the word milchama based on? The word lechem. He has to provide security so that they can have food and prosperity. You cannot have economic wellness if things are insecure. In fact, that's what they say in the bracha of, you get the Birkas Kohanim, is Yivarechecha Hashem, v'yishmerecha. Hashem is going to give you all this bounty, but He's also going to give you protection. Because if you have all the bounty and you don't have protection, what good is it? You can live in Mexico City and be a multi-millionaire Jew in Mexico City, but what do you have to live in? Can you go around walking around? No, they'll kidnap your kid and they'll hold you for ransom. There's no security, so you got to get a big house, hide yourself within 15 walls, and hire 24 hours a day security guards. Good luck to you. David HaMelech provided security, to provide lechem, parnasa. That's what a king does. In fact, I once heard from a mayor here, one of the mayors in Israel, that they said that they understood the first job of a mayor is to provide security for the town. Remember we had all the problems with the dogs here?
Yeah.
Caleb's didn't respect us, what?
Hearing us making a lot of rules and
Yeah, I think it's progressed a lot. I hear a lot less about it. But my daughter says she still gets messages about it occasionally. But you don't hear about it as much. Okay. The job of the mayor is to secure the town. You're the melech of the town, you secure it. What did David do for Naval? He provided security for his vast holdings. If robbers, marauders want to come and steal sheep every single day, or steal his goats every single day, or if wild animals come, right, he's out of business. So David voluntarily, acting like a king would act, to a fellow Judean, took his 600 men and says, I'm already practicing to be king. I may not be king yet, but I'm in training. We're kings, and this is my army. And I have to be responsible for parnasa, milchama. So I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. He protects his flock. And then comes a day where he's shechting the sheep. That's payday. Every whatever season at the end, the shepherds get paid, and all his staff gets paid, and everybody eats and celebrates, and they cash in the profits. So what does David do on that day? Which it turned out to be the same day as Rosh Hashanah. Now, why was that a very, very bad day to make a party for your own prosperity? What's really bad? I'll point this out. What's insensitive about that? Who had just died that day? Shmuel. What are you making a party? It's Shmuel Melch's Avelus. What are you doing? Second of all, it's Rosh Hashanah. It's a day of Hashem's Malchus. The answer is, he said, it's a day of Malchus. It's the day of my Malchus. Get it? So he says, Shmuel is dead. He was like a king. He picked a shawl. That's his king. And now, I'm the king. He coronates himself on Rosh Hashanah. So when David comes and says,